Imagine trying to cool down a pot of boiling water by just like yelling at it.
Right. That's never going to work.
No, exactly.
Mm.
You can scream, you can rationalize with it, you can tell it to calm down, but the water is going to keep rolling until you actually change the environment.
Yeah, the physical environment.
Right. It doesn't work on water, and yet, I mean, that is exactly what we do to our own nervous systems every single day.
Oh, absolutely.
We get stressed, our internal temperature spikes, and we just tell ourselves to, get over it.
Just calm down.
Yeah, just calm down, which is the worst thing you can say. But what if the antidote to our modern boiling over anxiety wasn't just a mindset shift, but something forged underground millions of years ago?
That is a wild thought.
Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really fascinating mission today. We are exploring a comprehensive guide provided by Crystals by Rob, and we're diving into the physical, emotional, and psychological dimensions of a very specific mineral.
Right. White-banded chalcedony.
Yes, white-banded chalcedony.
And, whether you're someone who has an elaborate crystal grid set up in your living room, or you're simply a deeply curious skeptic looking for new ways to understand human psychology and stress management, this framework is incredibly rich.
It really is.
We're looking at how humanity uses the physical world, specifically the geology of this microcrystalline quartz, to sort of map out our internal emotional landscapes.
The guide from Crystals by Rob introduces this mineral by an incredibly poetic nickname. They call it the Stone of the Clouds.
The Stone of the Clouds. I love that.
Okay, let's unpack this, because as I was looking at the pictures of this stone and reading the descriptions, I kept picturing it acting as a sort of metaphysical air conditioner for the human soul.
Oh, wow. A metaphysical air conditioner.
Yeah, it's got these beautiful milky white translucent layers that literally look like ribbons of fog or like cirrus clouds frozen in time.
I really like that visual. An air conditioner for the soul. That analogy perfectly captures the core mechanic we'll be looking at. What's fascinating here is that the guide doesn't just list off magical properties, right? It deliberately connects the physical traits of the stone to deep psychological states.
Like its smooth, waxy luster.
Exactly. It's waxy luster, it's cool temperature, it's layered formation. It treats the physical object as a literal mirror for the mind.
Right. But if we are going to talk about mind and spirit, I feel like we have to start with the most immediate, visceral impact.
The emotional triage.
Yes, emotional triage. The guide describes the core metaphysical property of white-banded chalcedony as acting as a, quote, profound sedative for the overactive heart.
A profound sedative.
Yeah. It's highly recommended for treating emotional overflow, and they define that as sudden panic, intense anger, and chronic anxiety.
So essentially, the exact moments when your autonomic nervous system is totally hijacked.
Right.
Your amygdala is firing, your heart rate is up, and you are in pure fight or flight mode.
But I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm imagining a scenario where you are sitting in gridlock traffic, you're late for a massive meeting, your chest is tight, and you are profoundly, intensely angry.
We've all been there.
Exactly. Abstract terminology is great, but practically speaking, how exactly does holding a rock cure a panic attack?
It's a fair question.
I mean, is it just the placebo effect of mindfulness, or is there an actual mechanism at play here?
That is the million-dollar question. And the guide addresses this not as magic, but as a sensory pattern interrupt.
A pattern interrupt.
Yeah. Think about the language being used. You mentioned the air conditioner analogy earlier.
Right.
The guide leans heavily into the concepts of temperature and states of matter. It talks about cooling fevers, dissolving hostility, and replacing heavy, heated anger with lightheartedness.
So lowering the emotional fever.
Exactly. When you are in that car, gripped by road rage, your brain is caught in a closed neurological loop of panic.
It's just feeding on itself.
Right. By physically holding a stone that is literally cool to the touch, with a smooth, waxy texture, you are introducing a new, calming sensory input.
Oh, I see it.
The stone draws heat away from your skin. That subtle temperature change sends a physical signal to your brain to begin downshifting the parasympathetic nervous system. It interrupts the loop.
So it's not suppressing the anger, like just swallowing it down.
No, not at all.
It's giving you a tactile anchor so you can actually process it, like a weighted blanket for your nervous system.
A weighted blanket. That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Yeah.
The guide specifically notes that this cooling effect cultivates self-forgiveness and the grace to move past conflict.
Because you aren't so fired up anymore.
Right. It doesn't erase the traffic jam, but it brings you back to a baseline of equanimity so you can handle the traffic jam without having a complete meltdown.
That makes total sense on an internal level. But that emotional fever rarely happens in a vacuum.
True.
It's usually triggered by something external, like the open plan office is loud, the fluorescent lights are buzzing, someone is arguing on the phone right next to you.
Yeah, sensory overload.
And that brings us to how this guide explains the stone's interaction with our energetic field long before the stress even hits our physical body.
So we are moving from reactive emotional first aid to proactive preventative maintenance.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the guide claims the stone acts as a powerful cleanser and stabilizer that absorbs negative energy before it can enter the physical body.
Right.
It smooths out what it calls the jagged edges of the aura.
Jagged edges. I love that phrasing.
Love you too. And for anyone unfamiliar, you can think of the aura as that invisible electromagnetic bubble we all instinctively know exists. I mean, it's why you feel so uncomfortable when a stranger stands, 3 inches away from you in an elevator.
Yeah, it's your personal energetic boundary.
Right. And the guide says this boundary gets jagged and frayed by stress and environmental pollutants, including electromagnetic frequencies, or EMFs, from our devices.
Which are everywhere now.
Everywhere. So reading this, I instantly thought of the stone as an energetic spam filter.
An energetic spam filter. That is spot on.
Yeah.
It catches the junk mail of the universe before it clutters your inbox.
Exactly. But I want to dig into a very specific, almost medical claim the guide makes here.
Okay.
It says the stone's vibrations are anti-inflammatory to the energy field, and that it supports a fluid, rhythmic flow of qi to prevent physical fatigue. It even ties this directly to the lymphatic system. So how does this framework link an invisible, esoteric concept like qi directly to physical inflammation and exhaustion?
It's a really profound exploration of the mind-body connection. In this framework, qi is simply the life force. Think of it as a river of energy flowing through the body.
Okay, a river.
The guide posits that energetic stagnation is the root cause of physical fatigue. When you are sitting in that noisy, stressful office, surrounded by chaotic energy, your body unconsciously tenses up.
Oh, absolutely.
You clench your jaw, your shoulders rise up to your ears.
You literally armor yourself against the room.
Precisely. You armor yourself. And that physical armoring acts like a dam in the river of your qi.
So the energy backs up.
Yes, the energy backs up. And when energy is blocked, the physical body has to work twice as hard just to maintain basic equilibrium.
Right, because you're fighting your own resistance.
Exactly. That constant low-grade tension leads to profound exhaustion. And in metaphysical terms, it manifests as inflammation.
Wow.
By acting as that protective spam filter, the Chalcedony holds a steady, resonant frequency. It catches the chaotic frequencies so your body doesn't have to tense up to block them.
So it's preventing the energetic overload from becoming actual physical burnout.
Yes. It promotes the free flow of energy, which the guide notes is absolutely essential for vitality and a functioning immune system.
Because you aren't wasting energy on defense.
If your energetic borders are secure, your physical body can just relax.
Okay, so let's follow the timeline here.
Let's do it.
Your aura is cleared of the environmental spam.
Yeah.
The jagged edges are smoothed out. Your internal emotional fever is broken. You are sitting at a completely clean slate. Your inbox is at 0.
A rare feeling.
Very rare. But now you actually have to interact with the world again, which leads to how we project this newly balanced energy outward.
Which brings us to the throat chakra.
Yes, the throat chakra. And for those new to the term, chakras are generally understood in these traditions as invisible, spinning wheels of energy in the body corresponding to major nerve plexuses.
Right.
The throat chakra is the bridge between the heart, where we feel, and the head, where we think. It's all about communication.
Essential for interacting with the world.
Exactly. And the guide states that white-banded chalcedony is so deeply connected to this energy center that it has earned the title of a stone of divine communication.
Divine communication. It's highly recommended for anyone who needs to speak their truth clearly.
It encourages honest, heartfelt expression. The guide actually suggests carrying it into difficult meetings or using it for public speaking because it allows your words to flow with grace and calm authority.
There's that theory.
But I'm really bumping up against a paradox here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, if I am going to give a public speech or if I need to command a boardroom, that requires projection.
Sure.
It requires high energy, charisma, and action. You have to captivate a room. So how does a stone that is fundamentally built around silence, sedation, and cooling make you a more authoritative, dynamic speaker?
It absolutely sounds like a contradiction at first glance.
Right.
But the guide resolves this beautifully by redefining what effective communication actually is.
How so?
Well, we often think of authority as volume, right? The loudest person in the room is in charge.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But the guide argues that true, authentic communication requires the complete absence of ego and emotional clutter.
Ah, so it's not about shouting louder, it's about removing the static.
Exactly.
Addition by subtraction.
Think about how people communicate when they are nervous.
They ramble.
They overtalk. They ramble to fill the silence. Or they speak from a highly reactive, defensive posture.
Yeah, getting defensive.
And that isn't authority. That's anxiety. By quieting the mental chatter and balancing the throat chakra, the stone isn't silencing your voice. It is silencing the anxiety and the insecurity surrounding your voice.
Oh, I love that. It gives you the confidence to use a pause.
Yes. A well-placed pause is the ultimate sign of authority.
Totally.
That calm authority comes from being so deeply anchored in your own truth that you don't feel the need to shout to be heard.
You're just secure in what you're saying.
You are projecting absolute clarity rather than just raw volume. It allows for pure, compassionate expression.
That makes a lot of sense. And once you master your own voice and project your truth outward, the natural progression in this framework is to start seeking truth from outside yourself.
You start reaching upward.
Exactly. You start reaching upward. And this is where the guide significantly expands its scope, moving from the physical and interpersonal realms into the deeply ethereal.
We transition to the highest energy centers.
And the guide brings back that physical geology we touched on at the beginning. It says the translucent white bands layered in the stone literally symbolize the peeling back of human consciousness and ego to reach a state of inner silence.
Peeling back the layers.
Yeah. And it links the stone to two specific, very high-level chakras, the crown chakra and the soul star chakra.
Let's break those down because they serve very different functions in the lore.
Okay, so the crown chakra is located right at the top of the head. It's associated with spiritual enlightenment, clearing mental fog, and connecting to universal consciousness.
Right.
The practices recommended here involve visualizing white light and using affirmations like, I trust my higher self.
Which is very grounding in a way.
But then there's the soul star chakra, which the guide places 6 to 12 inches above the physical body.
So it's actually floating over the head.
Yeah, floating over the head, yeah. It connects to the soul's ultimate purpose, spiritual ascension, and karmic cleansing.
It is entirely detached from the physical form.
Right. So what does this all mean? How do we ground this?
It gets pretty abstract.
It does. When I was reading about this soul star energy center floating above the body, I instantly thought of it as the cloud storage of a person's spiritual lineage.
Cloud storage. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, if we use a modern analogy, like your physical body is the hardware.
Okay.
The crown chakra at the top of your head is the Wi-Fi receiver.
I follow you.
And the soul star chakra is the actual cloud server, where your soul's karmic data, your life's purpose, and your history are safely stored.
That is a phenomenal way to translate a deeply esoteric concept into something instantly recognizable.
Thanks.
And what role does the stone itself play in that analogy?
The stone is the password, or the two-factor authentication token.
Oh.
It's the tool you use to securely log in and download that karmic data without getting totally overwhelmed by the sheer file size of universal consciousness.
If we expand on that downloading concept, karmic cleansing in this framework isn't about magical erasure.
It's not just deleting files.
Right. It's about gaining access to that cloud data so you can finally see the deep repetitive patterns you've been running, perhaps for your whole life or across lifetimes, depending on your beliefs.
To see the code, basically.
Exactly. The stone provides the psychological distance needed to view those patterns objectively.
And what truly blew my mind in this section of the guide was the staggering volume of cross-cultural associations listed for these two chakras.
Oh, it is a massive list.
It really is. It doesn't just stick to one tradition. For the soul star and crown, it lists animal guides like the eagle, the raven, and the spider.
Right. It links them to the planets Jupiter and Uranus.
And the element of spirit.
The deity associations are incredibly broad as well.
Oh, completely. You've got Buddha, Zeus, Kuan Yin, Gaia.
Quite a mix.
It goes into archangels, associating Metatron with the crown chakra and Mariel with the soul star.
Mm-hmm.
It even provides highly specific candle colors, like violet for the crown, white or magenta for the soul star.
And different herbs and oils too, right?
Yeah. Lavender and gotu kola for the crown, but jasmine, ylang ylang, and white sage for the soul star.
It can feel like a dizzying list, honestly.
Very overwhelming.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it serves a profound purpose.
How so?
The guide isn't just throwing random myths together. Let's look at the mechanisms behind these associations.
Okay.
Why the eagle? Because the eagle flies above the clouds, possessing the ultimate bird's eye view, much like the objective perspective of the soul star.
That makes sense.
Why Zeus? As a sky god, he represents absolute clarity, authority, and the calming of the storm.
And even the herbs make sense when you look at their physical properties.
Exactly.
Lavender literally contains chemical compounds known to soothe the human nervous system, which perfectly mirrors the metaphysical properties of the Chalcedony we discussed earlier.
Exactly. The author is showing us that across cultures, eras, and belief systems, from Greek mythology to angelic realms to botanical science, humanity has always sought out tools to help us reach upward.
We're all looking for the same thing.
We all share this universal desire to connect with something larger than our individual egos. The white-banded Chalcedony is simply a tangible, physical focal point for that universal human reaching.
That is beautiful synthesis, truly. But having explored the dizzying heights of the soul star, the angelic realms, and the cloud storage of the universe, I feel like it is absolutely vital that we bring this knowledge firmly back down to Earth.
Back to the living room.
Yes, because as fascinating as the ethereal realms are, we still have to wake up and go to work on Tuesday.
You certainly do.
How does one actually use this stone in their day-to-day life?
Spiritual knowledge is only truly valuable when it can be applied to the friction of our daily lives.
Exactly. And the vendor, Crystals by Rob, provides some wonderfully specific, deeply practical recommendations for doing just that.
Let's hear them.
For instance, they suggest placing a specimen of white-banded chalcedony in a child's bedroom to soothe bad dreams and night terrors.
That ties right back to the cooling, calming effect.
Right. They also recommend keeping a piece in shared living spaces, like a family room or kitchen, to foster conflict resolution and maintain a collaborative atmosphere among roommates or family members.
Acting as that environmental stabilizer we talked about earlier, catching the jagged edges before an argument even starts.
Exactly. They also suggest holding it during your morning meditation as a physical anchor. The phrase the guide uses is to clear the slate of your mind before a busy day begins.
Setting the baseline.
But my absolute favorite recommendation in the entire guide is using it as emotional support for caregivers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it helps to replenish their emotional reserves so they can continue offering patience and compassion to those they are looking after.
That is so important. This raises an important point about the reality of caregiver burnout.
Yeah, it's a huge issue.
When you are constantly pouring your energy out to care for someone else, your own well runs dry very quickly.
You have nothing left to give.
Exactly. The stone, in this context, acts as a mechanism for the caregiver to finally receive some of that soothing, cooling energy back. It is a tool for self-preservation.
And practically speaking, if you are going to use this tool, the care instructions provided are simple but specific.
You have to maintain the tool.
Right. You can cleanse the stone's energy, essentially emptying the spam filter by placing it in a selenite bowl or leaving it out under the moonlight.
Very gentle cleansing.
Yes, gentle. Because the guide explicitly warns against prolonged water exposure or using any harsh chemicals, as it will physically damage the delicate layers of the microcrystalline quartz.
You can't just toss it in the dishwasher.
No, definitely not. But, looking at all these practical tips, what really stands out to me is the accessibility of it all. Whether you are slipping a piece of Chalcedony jewelry on before a highly stressful office meeting, or just keeping a tumbled stone near your laptop to neutralize an overwhelming digital environment, you don't need a master's degree in metaphysics to benefit from this framework.
And that accessibility is the core beating heart of this guide.
Yeah.
Crystals by Rob emphasizes that this stone is ultimately a tool for everyday maintenance. It is not just for grand, once-in-a-lifetime spiritual awakenings on a mountaintop.
It's for the daily grind.
Exactly. The text invites you to use this stone to quiet the noise of the world and tune into the whispers of the soul.
Whispers of the soul.
It's about carving out tiny, fiercely protected pockets of serenity on a random weekday afternoon.
So let's take a moment to look back at the incredible journey we've just taken with white-banded Chalcedony.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We started with its physical geology, those cooling, milky layers, and saw how they serve as a tactile pattern interrupt, providing emotional triage for an overactive heart and cooling our internal fever.
A sensory anchor.
Right. Then we explored its role as an energetic spam filter, protecting our boundaries from the jagged edges of modern stress and preventing physical burnout.
Keeping the chi flowing.
Exactly. Then we unraveled the paradox of the throat chakra, learning that the most powerful, authoritative communication actually stems from profound inner silence and the removal of ego.
The power of the pause.
We reached upward, using the stone as a password to access the wifey signals of the crown and the karmic cloud storage of the soul star chakra. We saw how this reflects a universal human desire to connect with the divine.
Across all those different cultures and myths.
Yeah. And finally, we brought it all back down to the very practical reality of soothing a child's nightmares, surviving a stressful office meeting, and supporting the exhausted caregivers among us.
It is a remarkable, elegant synthesis of geology, psychology, and spirituality.
It truly is. Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today.
It's been a great journey.
But before we sign off, we want to leave you with a final lingering thought. The guide tells us that the delicate white bands of this stone represent the endless, overlapping layers of human consciousness.
The layers of the mind.
So if this stone is a mirror for your internal state, what hidden layer of your own emotional geology might you discover if you finally sat still long enough to look?
That raises an incredibly vital question about our modern lives.
Yeah.
How often do we actually allow ourselves the luxury of that stillness?
Rarely. If ever.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning the world around you, and if you ever feel your own emotional fever rising, remember that you can always look for your own stone of the clouds, your own metaphysical air conditioner to help you find your cool. Until next time.